All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aligned Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Torrie Thompson, and I am so excited this week to dive into environmental toxins. Environmental toxins are a passion of mine because they are everywhere. And to be honest, there's really no way you can fully avoid these. And so I really want to go into why certain things should be avoided, what some better alternatives are, what can be stored in your body, what effects these things have. So we're going to dive headfirst into these environmental toxins. And so an environmental toxin is a toxin that we find out in the environment. Crazy, right? And so we are looking at things in the air, in our products, in our water, in the clothing, in our personal care, our cleaning products. All of these things have toxins in them or have the potential to have toxins in them. And I look at so many environmental toxin panels, right? So we can look at what environmental toxins are sitting inside someone's body. And I get to look at people who have a lot of symptoms and a lot of things that they feel can be improved upon. And I also see people that are wanting to optimize. They have no symptoms. They just want to make sure there's nothing in their body that could cause issues down the road. And the common denominator is we find a ton of environmental toxins. We find usually somewhere between 10 and 20 toxins in a person. And so that is a lot, right? Especially when these things have been linked to cancer and Alzheimer's and all these diseases. We want to know what is in someone's body. One, can we remove it, make sure it's not in their current environment? And then two, can we get it out of their body? So environmental toxins are everywhere, to be honest. There's really no way to get to a zero environmental toxin exposure unless you live in a house that you built with really no materials that are current, made in our current environment, and you live out away from everyone. That is really the only way you could do it. If you'd have to catch all your food, and it would be a near impossible task. So our average person, you cannot get to environmental toxin level of zero. The world is a very toxic place. We have seen a huge rise in industrial toxins over the last 100 years. So when we're looking at environmental toxins, what really are we looking at? We are looking at things like pesticides, herbicides, VOCs or volatile organic compounds, some of the hormone disruptors, so BPA and plastics, the phthalates, the parabens, all of these guys can be found in our products. And then now we're starting to see the research trickling in about how these things are affecting us. So the most common sources of environmental toxins are our food, our water, and our products, right? So if you're buying something that is made, there's a possibility there are some toxins in it. And so when we look at environmental toxins as a whole, how do they affect the body? So the first thing that they do is they're very toxic to our bodies. So we tend to see the liver and the kidneys get stressed out. And when those guys get stressed, what happens is the body starts holding on to other toxins because the liver can't handle anymore. So then we start getting toxins that accumulate in our tissue, in our fat cells. For a lot of people, this is weight loss resistance. They cannot lose weight whether they eat no food, whether they exercise 24 hours a day, no matter what it is, of any crazy measure, their body holds on to weight. That often can be associated with a high environmental toxin load. We see a lot of inflammation, whether it's body inflammation or brain inflammation. We see a lot of hormone disruption, whether it's your reproductive hormones, estrogens, and testosterone, or things like the thyroid hormone can all be affected. And then they are linked to cancer, many of them. And so even if they're not affecting you now, looking at how can I get these out of my system so that they are not going to possibly affect me down the road is a huge thing. So one of the reasons I love environmental toxins is because when you're looking at things like genetics, people love to look for genes of cancer, for genes of Alzheimer's disease, all of these genes. The gene itself is about 10% of the equation. 90% of it is lifestyle. And a big piece of that, right, is our toxic load. Of course, there's other things, our stress, our sleep, our relationships, our environment, mold, gut health, brain health. There's so many other factors. But a big piece of it is our environmental toxin load. And so what I always am trying to get people to do is look at their products, because nowadays there's so many good replacements that are much less toxic than some of the, products that have been around a long time. And then let's get it out of your system. So, looking at some of these toxins, some of the big guys are plastics. It's probably one of the biggest environmental toxins that people are exposed to because the world uses a lot of plastic. So, really at home, this is what we're talking about. I want you to control your home environment because that's where we spend the majority of our time. So, if we can control the products in our home, that gives us wiggle room to allow things that we can't control when we're out in the world. So plastics are my number one thing to get rid of, right? So whether it's plastic water bottles, plastic cutting boards, plastic food storage, anything that comes in plastic, we want to avoid. And so the problem with plastics is plastic and heat. So once plastics have been heated up, whether it's a water bottle that baked in the sun prior to us getting it, or sitting in your car, or putting a plastic food storage through the dishwasher or in the microwave, when the plastics get hot, they can leach into our food, and that's where we can start getting these plastics into our body. You've probably heard by now that the average person eats about a credit card's worth of plastic in a year. That's a lot, right? You don't want those plastics in your body. And so one of the big plastics that we look for is something like BPA. And so BPA is a big hormone disruptor. It will mimic your estrogen. And so you can end up with estrogen dominance. It also will go at the thyroid and has been linked to cancer. And so BPA, most people know, stay away from BPA, but there is this huge marketing push to go, oh, well, I'm going to go with BPA-free plastic. What they don't tell you is BPA is bisphenol A. BPA-free is often just bisphenol S or bisphenol S. They have these same health implications of BPA, but they are not BPA, so they can say that it's BPA-free. So I recommend ditching all plastics. Go glass water bottles, stainless steel water bottles, glass Tupperware, stainless steel cutting boards or wood cutting boards, but please get rid of the plastic water bottles, the plastic food storage, and the plastic cutting boards. That will make a huge difference in your day-to-day life. Something else that is probably one of the more common toxins that we see are phthalates and parabens. So of course they can be in plastics. So again, going back to the no plastic thing, but they are in a lot of our cleaning products and our personal care products, especially as women. As women, we see it in makeup, body wash, shampoo, conditioner, cleaning products, men as well. And these things are linked to hormone imbalance as well. They are known endocrine disruptors. And the tricky part of them is they're in so many products. And so nowadays you will see things that are paraben and phthalate free. So that is a good start in terms of personal care products. And in your cleaning products, a lot of them may say phthalate free or paraben free. They may not, but really looking to clear out those and make sure that there are no phthalates and parabens in it. They can also be found in children's toys, any of the plastics. So again, with kids, I usually recommend doing wood toys or staying away from the plastic ones. Something else that we see is a lot of the fire retardants. So a lot of the products that we use, our mattresses, our couches, our rugs, they have these fire retardants on them. And so some of them are unavoidable because of the government mandates. However, you can find better options of a mattress or of a couch, things that are going to be lower on the VOC scale. And these VOCs are known for respiratory issues. They're known for infertility, for developmental issues, and ADD, ADHD. They are very harsh toxins that can sit inside the body. Then we've got pesticides and herbicides. So this is things like glyphosate or Roundup, atrazine, and some of the organophosphates. So the most common way we get the organophosphates, glyphosate, atrazine, is going to be on our foods. So the non-organic food versions of these things can have these sprayed on them. So glyphosate, of course, is in Roundup, a weed killer and preventative, but it's also sprayed on things like oats, sweet potatoes, beets, tend to see glyphosate on. Atrazine we see in the non-glyphosate weed killer as well, but it's also very heavily used on corn. And then the organophosphates are the most commonly used pesticides in the world agriculturally, and so these are going to be on your non-organic produce. So If possible, go for the organic version, especially if you eat the outside. Look at the Dirty Dozen list every year, see what the highest sprayed foods are and avoid those. But if possible, anytime you eat the outside, so think like an apple or berries, you want to go in with the organic version just so that you're not getting it in, because even a non-organic, there's no way to get the pesticides off. You can soak and it can lower it. And things like vinegar, there's some good, veggie washes. However, you can't get it to zero. So try to eat organic, but if you need to budget, go with the Dirty Dozen list. And every year it changes on the foods that are the highest sprayed foods. So you want to have the organic versions of those. The other thing is those guys can be in the water. So if you live in a very heavy agriculture area, we've seen atrazine and glyphosate in the water. So making sure that you are drinking filtered water, and the refrigerator filter does not cut it. You want whether reverse osmosis, so having something that pulls everything out and then you can remineralize. You can use something like a Boro or a Berkey, but that will pull most things, not everything, but stay away from things like the Brita, staying away from things like refrigerator filters, because those guys do not pull all of the toxins out. Then we have more of the VOCs that we want to really watch out for. So that's things like paint, flooring, that new smell, flooring and the new furniture. Those guys, that new off-gassing smell does contain VOCs. You can get lower VOC paint or no VOC paint. But regardless, when you get new things in the house, whether it's through a remodel, a new build, or new furniture, you want to run air purifiers, HEPA filters, open up your windows, let it air out before going in there and breathing it in. So these environmental toxins, we went over like a very, very small amount of them, but these environmental toxins that we're looking at are associated with a lot of things that are not great. So there is a big association of high environmental toxin loads with cancers, with Parkinson's, with ALS, with developmental issues, with thyroid issues, with insulin resistance. These things affect the body, and they're all quite unique on how they can do it, but they are inflammatory. They can cause issues down the road. And so in terms for me of optimization, I want to make sure that one, my products are clean, and two, I don't have them stored in my body. Something that people often think of is that, oh, I've cleaned all my products up, right? We don't use plastics. Our cleaning products are non-toxic. We buy low VOC furniture and paints and stuff. But what we tend to forget is all of the years of exposure. And often most people have a good amount of these stored in your body. And so I see people all the time, they get so frustrated because they spend a fortune on all of their clean products. They buy organic, cleaning products are dialed in, no toxins, but they still have an insane amount of toxins in their body. And it doesn't mean that what you're doing currently isn't working. What it means is that you've just had years and years of stored toxins. And for most of us, we grew up in the era of plastics, non-organic food, crazy chemicals in our cleaning products, and nobody knew the health implications. So for many of us, we have years and years of that stored in our body. And now you're not adding to it, right? Your products are clean, you're not adding to it, but it's just those years and years of products there. Something else that people say is it really that big of a deal? How bad can these products be? And unfortunately, they are not great, right? We here in the United States don't do a ton of research on the effects of many of these toxins that are in products. But when you look at the research, it's things that I look at and I go, okay, I can very simply switch my products to something less toxic. It's a risk I am not willing to take. So getting rid of your plastics, getting purified water, getting your cleaning products better. Something else that I do not recommend is ever having candles burning in your house or any sort of fragrance, right? So whether it's Febreze or candles, those fragrances, they say fragrance is the new smoking. Getting rid of those is really, really important. Getting rid of all of your non-stick cookware, all the Teflon cookware, those, the second they're scratched, those toxins can get into your food and are linked to all sorts of hormone imbalances, neurotoxicity, even cancer. So really, over time, slowly start to change those out. changing over your personal care products, it used to be very, very expensive. There used to only be very expensive products that were clean, but nowadays you're starting to have some brands that have clean products that are really good prices. Things like A Cure is a great, body wash, shampoo, conditioner, and they're very reasonable. Things like Native, and there's these brands that brought clean products to a market that is an affordable product, cleaning products. There are lots of new brands popping up, but something to be mindful of is there's a lot of greenwashing. And what greenwashing is when a company makes a label look like it's very healthy, right? It'll say all natural or no toxic ingredients or something like that. But when you actually look at it, it's not necessarily true. So you really have to do your homework and look at what is in it. Is there fragrances? Are they being forthcoming with what is in it? And if not, you can look at the EWG's website, or you can use an app like Think Dirty, and what they will do is they will rate it. So you might have a product. Someone sent me a laundry detergent, and it looked good from the outside. It said plant-based, enzymes, no chemicals, non-toxic. But then I looked it up on the EWG and it scored an F. You can't get any worse than that. And it's because they had fragrance and they had these non-specific ingredients in there that didn't exactly say what it was. So you can look up through the EWG, through Think Dirty, and see, are these products actually clean, or are they just kind of greenwashing? Another brand is Seventh Generation. They're notorious for it as well, right? Their products look good, but they're not horrible, right? They're not as bad as using some of the other conventional guys, but they're not great. So you do want to do your homework and see, is this something that is really non-toxic and I feel safe using, or is this just kind of greenwashing and not the best option? So how would you know if you have high toxicity, right? So the signs of high toxicity are non-specific. You generally don't have one specific symptom. It's a standout guy that says, oh, you have high toxic load. Some of the symptoms that are a little more specific would be if you have a very sensitive body to toxins, right? You walk into a perfume section at the mall and you get a headache. That's usually a pretty good sign that your body doesn't want any more toxins. It can be things though like fatigue and weight gain, inability to lose weight, hormone imbalances. And this is something I will never, ever shut up about. And we're actually going to do a separate podcast on this topic alone, is hormone imbalances. People often will do a hormone test, see that their estrogen's high or their estrogen's low, their hormones are off, but they don't look for the why. Do you have hormone disruptors sitting in your body that are causing the hormones to be off? Because if that's the case, you haven't figured out the root cause of why. You need to figure out what is causing the hormones to be off. And often it's these environmental toxins. So I love to see an environmental toxin panel paired with a hormone test, so you at least have an idea. Hey, look, you have 10 environmental toxins sitting in your body that all affect estrogen, and your estrogen's off. So let's get rid of these toxins and then balance out the estrogen pathways. So hormone imbalances can be sleep issues. It can be brain fog, memory recall issues. It can be skin issues. Really, all of these symptoms can be associated, things like autoimmune conditions, and even down the road, things like Parkinson's, MS, that kind of stuff. So again, it's just looking for it and seeing that if it's there. When we have high toxic loads, we tend to have these detox pathways that are stuck. So we tend to see that the liver and the kidneys and lymphatic system are all kind of bogged down, and then we accumulate faster and faster and faster because the body can't move these toxins out anymore. So what we ultimately do is, one, I recommend doing a test, right? You can do a really simple urine test to see what toxins are stored in your body. Do you have any? And then that gives you the one, what is in my environment that could be adding to this? And what do I need to replace it with? And then two, let's get it out. You can bind these toxins out and get them out of your system. It just takes time. Something else that I do recommend everyone do is get air filters and a water filter. We talked about water before, but air filters. So I recommend getting an air purifier and running that guy 24/7. Then if there is off-gassing of VOCs, you are able to pull them out of the air, but it also takes things like allergens and mold spores out of the air and just gives you a much cleaner air to breathe, so that you're not breathing in those toxins every day. You really want to have these air purifiers in places that you sleep, or maybe your office, somewhere that you spend a lot of time. So what do you look for in non-toxic products? So you really want to make sure that there is no fragrance, that there's no harsh chemicals, and it's really, I do recommend using an app like Think Dirty or the EWG website and making sure that it's good of all of their harsh chemicals. They do run it through and they don't want a whole list of chemicals, so you can use one of those. Some of my favorite products are Branch Basics. I love them. I use their cleaning products. I do make a lot of my own with distilled vinegar, use borax, that kind of stuff, so you can make things yourself. But many of the products, I encourage you, just go through your current stuff and see what's in there. You'll see a lot of F's and D's of these products, and they'll tell you why and what it's linked to on the EWG and Think Dirty site. So those can be quite helpful. So if you get your house dialed in, then from there, it gives you the wiggle room when you go out in the world. I don't want people to be afraid of the environmental toxins that are out in the world. And what I mean by that is I don't want people to be afraid of going out to a restaurant or, using soap somewhere because it might have toxins, right? I want your house to be dialed in so that when you go out in the world, you have wiggle room. You don't have to be perfect. You can just make sure that the 80% of your life that you spend at home is dialed in. And then those little bit of toxins that you get exposed to out in the world, your body can take care of. So what do we do to support detox? How do we support detox in our day-to-day life? So if you're someone with a very high environmental toxin load, that is where doing a test and then detoxing that is very helpful, right? You need to pull the high environmental toxin load out, usually with things like binders, because the body can't do it. But for people that have either done that or have a lower environmental toxin load, what can we do in our day-to-day life to detox our body? So our liver is going to be the main detox guy. So we want to eat foods that support the liver health. And the best foods for that are going to be our cruciferous vegetables. So broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those guys are great for liver health and detoxification. You want to eat a lot of color and variety, right? So eating a lot of color is going to be helpful as well for getting your vitamins and your nutrients. You just really want to keep the processed foods, the sugar, all of that out, and just eat a whole food diet. Things that are coming out of the earth naturally, not things that are highly, highly processed. You also want to stay very hydrated. Most people are quite dehydrated, so we want to stay hydrated, and often we need minerals in our water, so either adding in some sort of electrolyte or lemon or salt, something in there to give our body some minerals. So staying hydrated so that your body can move toxins through is quite helpful. Then what we want to do is add in detox modalities. And so one of my absolute favorite ways to detox environmental toxins is the sauna. The sauna has so many health benefits. It's been linked to a reduction of cardiovascular death and Alzheimer's, dementia. However, in terms of environmental toxins, it can actually detox them out of your body. And so I do recommend people do regular infrared sauna sessions, where the research showed the most benefit was somewhere between the 4 to 7 times a week. But again, start low and slow and work up, and that can help move them out. Then you can add in dry brushing, red light, rebounding, whatever your body likes in terms of detox modalities to move these toxins out. And then if need be, you can go with a bigger detox with some binders to pull some of these stored toxins out. But again, just because you have a clean product now does not mean that you don't have, tons of toxins stored. When I did my first environmental toxin panel, I was neurotic about my lifestyle. There was 0 toxins in our house. Everything was about as clean as it can get. I wouldn't eat if there was an organic option. I mean, I was very, very dialed in on a low toxic exposure. And my toxin panel was off the charts. I had tons of pesticides. I had tons of glyphosate, atrazine, a lot of the plastics and hormone disruptors. I was loaded with toxins. And again, it was just from my years of growing up with conventional cleaning products, with non-filtered water, with not eating organic, that my body had stored it. And some people detox better than others. And that is where a little bit of that bio-individuality is there. You can have 2 people that live very similar lifestyles and one holds toxins and the other doesn't. So again, if you're curious, look into environmental toxin tests, and that will give you the answers of what's in your body and what do you need to do to get it out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I absolutely love environmental toxins. We're going to go much deeper into the hormone connection because I do feel that that is a really missed piece. But, go through your products, see what's there, see is there something that maybe is kind of greenwashed or looks like it's non-toxic, but it's not. Send us if you have products that you love. We love sharing that. But I hope you guys all have a fabulous week, and I will talk to you next week.